Hi everyone, my name's Tim. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Girl Scout cookie book tag. So this was originally done by a web of stories that I've seen basically Nedda and Sam Harrison do them. And I thought it was interesting because I've got my cup of tea here because as a British person you can't have a biscuit without tea. Yes, we call them biscuits. So what I thought I would go into is looking at the tag, but also think about how these are all American biscuits because Girl Scout cookies are a thing. We don't have Girl Scouts in the UK. We have Girl Guides and we have Scouts who can be girls. And they don't go around selling cookies. It's just not a thing. They raise money in different ways. Something that I found interesting, because I was doing a bit of Googling to find out what these biscuits, what these cookies are. And they're like, the girls, they have like their own brand of cookies that are like specifically made for Girl Scouts to sell. Bizarre. So with this, I'm going to try and answer the questions and also think about what a British equivalent of a biscuit would be. Or a treat, because they're not all biscuits. So the first question, question one, is Trefoils? Trefoils? I don't know. But it's a classic novel that you love. And a trefoil is just like a shortbread biscuit. So I thought about going for shortbread, but I thought about what's a classic biscuit that everyone loves. And for me, it's a rich tea. Can't go wrong with a rich tea biscuit. Anyway, a classic novel that I love would have to be The Call of the Wild by Jack London. I'm doing a whole year of reading Jack London, and The Call of the Wild is what started it off. I remember reading it and just being astounded by how good it was, how visceral it was, and how it really engaged me in that environment of the Yukon territory. That's my Roman Empire, you know. Instead of thinking about the Roman Empire, I'm thinking about the gold rush in the Yukon. So, question number two is Lemon Ups, a book that you find inspiring. We don't really do lemon biscuits. We do like lemon fondant fancies and stuff like that in the UK. But something that I was thinking that's inspiring, that's also a little bit fruity, is a Jammy Dodger for the UK. So a book that I find inspiring is Captain Scott by Ranulph Fiennes, the biography of the Antarctic explorer, and covering his whole life up until his final trip to the South Pole. And really inspiring because just those group of people. Also, I would say the Shackleton biography as well. But Scott was the first one I read, and I really liked how Ranulph Fiennes did the job of trying to like save Scott's reputation, because over the past 50 years, Captain Scott has been known as a bit of a bungler and how he made mistakes. But they're only mistakes in retrospect, and no one had been there before. So, and he did so much good things. And actually, Ranulph Fiennes still used some of the maps and information that Captain Scott did when he went to the South Pole. And if anyone's going to talk about polar exploration and really know what they're talking about, it's Sir Ranulph Fiennes. So, really inspiring. Number three is S'mores, a comforting book. So s'mores are when you get two biscuits and put marshmallow in between them. The closest thing I could think of for us is the Tunnock's tea cake. Absolutely banging treat. For me, a comforting book would be... It's interesting because most of the time you think of comforting books as books that you reread, and I generally don't reread. I've only reread 2 or 3 different books and series. So I'm not going to pick any of those, but I'm going to pick something that I found very comforting whilst I was reading it, and it's The Princess Bride by William Goldman. Up there for one of my favourite films of all time. And reading the book, it's just there. It's so strong. There are changes. Between the book and the film. The key one is the framing device. I thought the framing device for the book was brilliant, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I just found it so comforting being in that world where it's a fantasy, romance, sword fighting, epic. But it was like a pastiche, but a loving pastiche. It wasn't cynical in any way. Just brilliant. Number 4, Adventurefuls. These are like a chocolate caramelly brownie kind of biscuit. Cookie, I should say. For us, the only thing I could think of that was kind of chocolate and caramelly is the Tunnock's caramel wafer. So I've gone for 2 Scottish tonics treats in a row, but hey, it's my list. So this is an adventurous book. I love reading adventure books, one of my favourite genres. But one I thought was probably the most adventurous is The Hunters by Chris Kuznetsky. Honestly, any book by Chris Kuznetsky would work, but I went with The Hunters because it takes you to a location that I knew very little about, Eastern Romania, and it's looking for treasure, looking for gold, dealing with the fall of the Soviet Union, and looking for a train full of gold. You can't really get much more adventurous than that. This team are put together of treasure hunters. They all have specific skills, and he's done a trilogy of these books, and I think he's been trying to make it into a film, and I really hope that happens, because I'd love to see it as a film. His writing has a very cinematic quality to it. You could see it as an action movie, kind of fun action comedy movie, and I just can't wait for more books by Chris. Number 5, Samoas. I'm going to guess what they're called. They're just macaroons. I don't know why. They're just macaroons. They're just chocolatey, coconutty biscuits. So we have macaroons, so I'll just use macaroons. A book that blends 2 or more genres. And interesting, this was quite difficult to think about, because a lot of genres are more settings. So you think of big genres, you think of fantasy and sci-fi as genres. They're not really genres, they're settings for stories. Unless your story is about the creation of the fictional world or fundamentally looking at the fictional world, they're more settings. But I actually thought of a slightly different one, which is a book in a long series, and it was only the 3rd book written, and you could tell that they were bringing in new kinds of things, and that is Moonraker by Ian Fleming. It's the 3rd Bond book, and they're very much... James Bond is about spies, it's about action. Moonraker is the first one where real sci-fi comes into it, it's such a good book. It's a really, really strong book. So it mixes the typical Cold War spy novel and science fiction. Scientific elements into this world. Number 6, Do-si-dos. They were like Fox cream biscuits kind of thing. So it's like 2 biscuits with some like cream in between. I think they're like peanut butter flavour. So for this one, I went for custard creams, because, and the thing is, the question is, a book that you love that everyone seems to hate, or a book that you hate that everyone seems to love. So there's a few interesting. You have like super popular books that if you don't like them, that's fine. And then you get this like swell of anti-it, because people are like, oh, I'm so alternative. So I thought about, Fourth Wing, I really didn't like, but there's actually a lot of people that don't like that book because it's not a fantasy book. It's a romance book with a little bit of fantasy in. But I thought of one that I've tried to read twice and failed both times. I just couldn't finish it. And it's A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. And it's not because of the subject matter. It's not because of the hyper-violence or anything like that. It's because it's not really written in English. It's written in some strange pseudo-pop bohemian English of made-up words and words meaning different things. And the copy that I had a glossary at the back, and I kept looking back at the glossary. I might as well have been reading a book in a foreign language. And there was one section where I read about 5 pages, and I was like, I could tell something has gone on, and I know that it's bad, but I can't even tell what it is. Like, I can't tell what is happening, because it's not written in a way that I can understand it. And I tried again, and I just couldn't, I basically got to the same point, and I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. So, number 7, they have Thin Mints, which I looked at pictures of, and they're not actually that thin. But, they're mints. So for me, I went After 8s. I know it's not technically a biscuit, but it's a classic mint flavour. And for me, like, the idea of mixing sweet treats with the taste of toothpaste is bizarre. But hey, so it's one of your all-time favourite books. For me, that is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I read it when I was 18, 19, I think. And I thought it was absurd and hilarious and bizarre and also horrific. But one thing, it was so entertaining to read that when the major moments hit you, it was really effective. I do think I started watching the George Clooney TV series of it, and I thought they went too hard on the horror of it to start with, because it's really absurdist, and I really like the absurdist humor of it. Yeah. So question 8 is to tag people. So I'm going to tag 4 different people, 4 different YouTube channels in this. The first one is StoryToob, the 2 lovely people on StoryToob, because I enjoy what they would think of this. Especially, I would like to see some Irish biscuits and cookies involved. That would be great. Then I'm going to tag Emma Bennett, who is a romance author, because she was one of the first people to kind of comment on my channel. Then I'm going to tag the Grape Jelly Library, because she does loads of tag videos, and I think she really enjoyed this. And then finally, I'm going to tag a channel who I haven't seen in a while, and he just started his YouTube channel, and he engaged with me very quickly in my very small corner of the internet. And he did a couple of videos and hasn't done much since, and I really want him to get kind of back on YouTube because I really enjoyed his opinions, and that is The Book Bunker. So there we go. Give this video a thumbs up. Go have a biscuit. You can have a cookie if you like, but biscuits are better. And I'll see you soon. And get out of my house!